Okay, hi. We're going to talk about the benefits of exercise. First thing is that you get mitochondrial biogenesis. So that means you make new mitochondria. Mitochondria are the energy factory within a cell. About 95% of the energy in a typical cell is produced in the mitochondria. And when you need more of them, you'll make more of them in your muscle. And of course, that makes sense. But if you think about it, the main purpose of a brain is movement. The old question is, why do animals have brains but plants do not? Because animals move, okay? And when you move, you got to do all kinds of things. You have to remember where you started, where you're going and whatnot. And anyways, the point is your brain needs to produce increased energy when you exercise, and it does. And the body's kind of a use it or lose it system. There's limited resources. So your body will dedicate resources to things that it's told that you need to do. So when you exercise, your brain says, and your whole body, all your individual cells say, well, the boss wants to exercise more. We got to be prepared to exercise. So you make more mitochondria. And the reason you want to do that is you want to build reserve. Because that way, someday when you need that reserve, it's there. All right, so you build mitochondria in the brain and in the muscles. And you also store more glycogen. In the brain, it's called glycogen supercompensation. Muscles, of course, also store glycogen. So people didn't in the past know that you could do it in the brain, but you do. It's been shown. There's been a whole bunch of studies, especially on mice, some studies on humans, but especially on mice, whereby they run them on the little voluntary exercise wheel, and then at autopsy they got more brain mitochondria, more brain glycogen storage, and they also have more brain BDNF, brain-derived neurotropic growth factor. And so BDNF causes the growth of new neurons. So when a person exercises, when an animal exercises, they will produce new neurons in your brain, which is wonderful. Because running out of neurons can be a big problem for people with Parkinson's disease, Alzheimer's disease, for example. And building more reserve helps to lower your risk of ever getting Parkinson's or Alzheimer's disease. You'll especially build new neurons in the hippocampus, some in the prefrontal cortex and the substantia nigra, and then along the lateral ventricles in what's called the subventricular zone. Your body is a use it or lose it system, so make sure you're using it. And it builds these things to what you need for peak performance. So you have to have a high level of peak performance so that the structures to provide it are in place. Angiogenesis means that you'll also produce new arteries. You'll produce collateral arteries that supply blood flow to these exercising muscle and to this active brain. So these are all wonderful things. In addition, there's something called a lymphatic pump. Everybody knows when you contract your leg muscles, you squeeze the veins, the blood goes back up to your heart. Yeah, real simple, everybody knows it. But the reality is, you've also got valved vessels for your lymphatics every single part of your body, except the deep brain parenchyma, but the brain has a lymphatic system. That's something different. But every part of your body, other than the special system of your brain, has lymphatics. And they're like a vacuum that sucks upon the extracellular matrix. And you'll get a lot of debris in your extracellular matrix, cellular debris from cell necrosis. You'll also get particles of protein, for example, that have escaped from the blood vessel but can't get back into the blood vessel. It goes from the capillary, there's gas and nutrient exchange, and sometimes stuff will get stuck in the subendothelial space, and it cannot get back into the blood vessel except to be pulled out by the lymphatics. And so what I'm trying to say is when you exercise, your lymphatic flow increases 10 to 30-fold. That's a dramatic increase. So it cleans out that extracellular matrix, that stuff, those spaces between the individual cells outside of the blood vessels. And you really want that to be done because that also lowers your risk of cancer. And that's why people who exercise have a lower risk of cancer, because it sends your immune system cells, which fight infections, which clean up injury, which are needed for healing. They are able to function most effectively when a person exercises. And a good heuristic that helps you for all health is to say to yourself, what did my ancestors do about 10,000 years ago? And you can think about Adam and Eve in the garden, okay? They walked around a lot all day looking for food, okay? That's what they did. So they're always exercising. They get lots of vitamin D from the sunshine. They sleep at night. They're not rubbing chemicals all over themselves. So anyways, what else? It'll increase insulin sensitivity because the glucose type 4 transporters in skeletal muscle, you'll transmit increased numbers of them to the plasma membrane to bring glucose into skeletal muscle. You have to send those up to the plasma membrane to bring glucose into the skeletal muscle. So that's another reason why when I eat, if no one else is around to talk to, I'll just walk around in circles while I'm eating. and I'll play an audiobook. So I can multitask. You can multitask as long as you're doing something different with each part of your body. So to eat a food, that's a visceral thing. I can do that without disrupting anything else. Listening to the audiobook, that's a cognitive thing. And then walking is a motor musculoskeletal thing. So I can walk, exercise, and learn something at the same time. 70% of the brain's neurons are located in the cerebellum, which is quite a surprise. Let's say there's about 100 billion brain neurons. About 70% are in that little cerebellum, which is quite small down in the back of your skull. And the point is that, why do we have so many neurons? For fine, detailed motor activity. And also when you think, you kind of move through your thoughts, if you will. And so what I'm saying is, when you exercise, you're going to use a tremendous amount of neuronal resources, and that kind of keeps your brain fresh and sharp. People who stop exercising, they become fat, slow, and stupid. We've all seen tons and tons of old people. When they start just retire, sit around and only watch TV, they got to do something to stay smart. They got to have an intellectual goal as well as a physical goal, because if they just sit around watching TV, they just become weaker and more cognitively impaired. Anyways, what else? You sweat out toxins. Take a look at you. You've got a white t-shirt on after you've been exercising, all the sweat. And it's not just clear sweat. There's a lot of debris in there, let's say. And the point is, you can sweat off a significant amount of toxins in that way. Then the thing is, take that shirt off and throw it in the laundry. Don't leave it on you, because you'll reabsorb some of that back into your skin if you don't. You can think of all your sweat pores as a bunch of little sores, if you will. Okay, you increase blood flow to the spine, and that helps to decrease your amount of low back pain, prevents degenerative disc disease. That motion gets nutrients into the disc and lets waste products come out of the disc. The discs between the vertebral body, they're alive. They run on anaerobic glycolysis, but they don't have an individual blood vessel. They simply get osmosis from and diffusion from the adjacent end plate of the vertebral body itself, the bone. And so you got to walk to get that motion going, to milk the good stuff in and to pull the bad stuff out. And what I meant with this lymphatic stuff is that by getting the white blood cells to circulate more rapidly through the lymphatic system, they're more able to clear out cancer. And that is good. Also, another thing about runners are smarter than other people. They just are, okay? That same personality of determination to make sure you complete the next mile makes you smarter. In my high school, I ran cross country my senior year, and I can tell you, by far, the kids with the best SAT, ACT scores in the whole high school were the cross country runners. There's a lady, Ruth Heidrich, famous triathlete, and she said she knows tons of runners, never once seen a single runner develop Alzheimer's. So I've seen that, the guys on my cross-country team who I knew well, I'd probably say their average SAT score was like at least 98th percentile. And these guys, they all were really smart. Increased muscle tone. And by the way, one brief thing, if I had to pick a best sport for a kid, I think running is good if they like it. I think tennis is really good if they like it. We'll talk more about cognitive performance in other lectures, but okay, what else is good about exercise? You have increased muscle tone. It just raises your self-esteem. It just does. You feel better about yourself. It makes you better looking. People who exercise, they're better looking. The same person, after they started exercising for a couple months, they become more good looking. They have a vitality, an energy about them. And also, I think in a woman, why are young women so pretty? Because they're fertile, they're healthy, and I think part of it is a woman can keep her looks a couple of extra decades if she eats well and she exercises. There's a very famous, interesting, beautiful lady by the name of Annette Larkins. Why don't you look her up? Annette Larkins. And she's a vegetarian, vegan, and she also exercises a lot. I've seen pictures of her when she's 70. She's incredibly good looking. So what I'm trying to say is she looks like she's about 35. If a woman exercises a lot and eats well, they can keep their looks an extra like 40 years. All right, what else? It improves your mood. It pulls you into the present. So if you're stressed out and unhappy about one thing in your life, you get exercising and it kind of can cheer you up and distract you. You got something called the task-based network, TBN, task-based network. And what that means is in the middle of your brain, there's something called the default mode network. That is what we default to when we're sort of bored. If you take a patient, put them on a functional MRI table, and they're just sitting there, they'll start thinking about relationships. She loves me not. Why is my girlfriend acting funny with me today? What does she want me to do? Oh, because I didn't want to go to that movie. You think about those sorts of things. So What I'm saying is, though, when you get busy with something, when you're working or doing schoolwork, you get pulled into what's called the task-based network, and it pulls you into the present, whereas the default mode network tends to make you think about something that happened in the past or think about tomorrow. Tomorrow, I'm going to try to be more attentive, so the wife, when I talk to her, she wants me to pay attention more. Okay, fine, I'll pay more attention. All right, well, anyways, task-based network, you're pulled into it with exercise. Exercise lowers your risk of coronary artery disease, Alzheimer's disease, and cancer. So those are all real good things. So these are just some of the benefits of exercise, incredibly good for your health.